Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into something absolutely wild in the world of evolutionary game theory. It's called the 70% extinction paradox. It turns out, being the good guy actually has a fatal mathematical flaw, one that could push human cooperation right to the brink of extinction. But, and this is the really important part, we're going to focus on exactly how we can reverse engineer our way out of it. We are going to figure out how humans escape this 70% extinction trap. So, let's jump right in.
All right, let's just start with this frankly shocking statistic. A recent study using evolutionary game theoretic modeling found that cooperative human players risk evolutionary extinction, wait for it, a staggering 70% of the time when they go up against a specific type of opponent. I mean, that is not a rounding error, right? That is a total systemic failure. The data basically shows that our natural instincts when we're pitted against cold, calculating strategies frequently walk us right off a cliff.
Seeing a massive number like 70% really forces us to ask a deeply uncomfortable question about ourselves. Why on earth does our absolute best trait, our ability to cooperate, to be pro-social, lead us straight into a mathematical death trap against purely self-interested agents? I mean, humans have the richest variety of pro-social behaviors in the whole animal kingdom. We sacrifice our own resources for fairness. We help each other out. So why does this amazing evolutionary advantage suddenly become this huge, glaring vulnerability?
To solve this mystery, the researchers brought in a classic tool, the iterated prisoner's dilemma. Now, you might already know the standard prisoner's dilemma, but the iterated part is absolutely crucial here. It's not just a one-off choice, it's a repeated game of trust. Because it repeats over and over, players actually get to learn about their opponent's strategies over time. They can hold grudges for past betrayals, or they can reward cooperation. It's basically a perfect simulation for long-term survival in the real world.
And the way they set this up was just brilliant. The scientists took choices from a totally different game, the ultimatum game, and mapped them directly onto the prisoner's dilemma. By analyzing 50 different human participants, they tracked something called theory of mind. Essentially, that's how we try to get inside the other guy's head and predict what they'll do. It's fascinating because it takes all these complex, unpredictable human choices and distills them into a concrete 2x2 grid of actual evolutionary consequences. Now, the core setup of this experiment is where things get really interesting. Those 50 human players, they weren't actually playing against each other. They were unknowingly pitted against computerized opponents that had two very distinct hidden agendas. One was a pro-social opponent, which was programmed to value fairness and mutual reward. But the other was an individualistic opponent, and this one was programmed for pure, cold, hard self-interest, always trying to grab an unfair share of the rewards no matter what. When you look at the payoff results, the contrast is just night and day. While humans thrived and created these great, mutually beneficial outcomes with the pro-social partners, they completely failed to escape extortion when dealing with the individualistic agents. Basically, the human players got bullied into submission. They tried acting much more cooperatively overall, but the individualistic algorithm just locked them into these terrible, extortionate terms. The algorithm secured higher rewards for itself regardless of whether the human decided to cooperate or defect.
So, why does this happen? Well, it turns out we humans are remarkably short-sighted. During the experiment, participants were just trying to bank as much real money as possible turn by turn, by instinctively trying to maximize their immediate short-term cash, like grabbing one marshmallow right now instead of waiting for two later. They became incredibly predictable. Our innate greed, it seems, makes us hugely vulnerable to an opponent who is just patiently waiting to exploit it.
Let's zoom out and look at how this builds into a total long-term disaster. When you project these interactions into a finite evolutionary horizon, which in game theory they call the Markov stationary states, it's basically the ultimate evolutionary endgame. And at this endgame, when humans are facing these extortionary agents, our interpersonal cooperation just severely erodes. The individualistic strategies absolutely skyrocket, and the human players are left entirely in the dust.
And boom, that brings us right back to that terrifying initial statistic. When the math finally plays out to its ultimate conclusion, human players fail to overcome the extortion. They suffer a brutal 70% extinction rate against those individualistic strategies. We do perfectly fine against fair, pro-social strategies, sure, but against an opponent that is purely self-interested and literally does not care about fairness, our standard cooperative playbook just falls apart entirely.
Okay, don't lose hope just yet.
The whole point of this explainer isn't just to highlight the trap, it's to figure out how we escape it. How exactly do humans escape a 70% extinction rate? Well, the researchers actually reverse-engineered a whopping 20,000 simulations just to find the exact behavioral patterns, the specific actions and reactions that can actually safeguard our survival against these predatory strategies.
When they compared the absolute best and worst strategies for survival, the findings were completely counterintuitive. It turns out that the human strategies that fare the absolute best at maintaining long-term mutual cooperation are actually the worst at breaking cycles of mutual defection. Let me just repeat that because it's wild. The ultimate survivors aren't the ones who are good at fixing a broken relationship. They are the ones who simply never let it break in the first place.
So the escape hatch here relies on a massive shift in our mindset. Instead of fighting to break cycles of defection once things have already gone sour, the most successful survival strategy is to relentlessly maintain mutual cooperation right from the very beginning. You literally have to look past those immediate short-term gains that make you predictable. To survive, you have to adopt a much longer evolutionary horizon, focusing entirely on the long-term trajectory of the relationship rather than just grabbing a quick win on a single turn.
The study pretty much hits the nail on the head with its conclusion. Human players who focus on maximizing short-term goals might be completely oblivious to and totally unprepared for the long-term consequences. Honestly, our short-sightedness is our own worst enemy, and this is absolutely crucial today. We are increasingly interacting with corporate entities or even AI algorithms that can calculate their reward trajectories perfectly over thousands of iterations. They don't get tired, and they certainly don't get distracted by a quick buck.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this to think about in your own daily interactions, whether that's in business, in negotiations, or just in your personal life. When you cooperate with someone, are you just playing to win today's comfort, grabbing at those short-term gains, or are you playing the long game, establishing an unshakable baseline of mutual cooperation that's actually built for long-term survival? The math is pretty clear on this one. One path leads to a 70% chance of extinction, and the other is our only real way forward.